Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us for today's webinar about building a power network with Ryan Williams, who you can see here on your screen. I'm Drew Webb with the Alumni Association, and today's webinar is our last of this year. So if you missed any of our previous webinars, you can view recordings of them by visiting vuconnect.com/career. And while you're there, make sure to check out some of our other career resources, including the Career Advisor database, where you can search through over 8,000 alumni who have volunteered to help with career-related advice. Today's webinar will last around 45 minutes. Please feel free to type questions into the question box as you have them, and we will make sure we get these addressed by the end of today's session. We are recording the presentation, and we'll send you a link to the recording later this week. Our presenter today, Ryan Williams, graduated from Vanderbilt in 2000 with a Bachelor's of Science in Human and Organizational Development, and is a marketing strategist, public speaker, and former stand-up comedian. He authored the book, The Influencer Economy, How to Launch, Collaborate, and Thrive in the Digital Age, and produces a podcast on influencereconomy.com. For the last 3 years, Ryan interviewed over 100 influencers who have built ideas online, such as Seth Godin, Willie Geist, Derek Sievers, Troy Carter, Francesca Ramsey, and many others. He has given talks and taught at South by Southwest, Vanderbilt, the City University of London, USC, and Loyola Marymount. Ryan's podcast and writing have been featured in Inc. Magazine, Huffington Post, Success Magazine, Business Insider, Social Media Examiner, and USA Today, and we are so glad that he is here with us today. Ryan, I'm pleased to now turn over the presentation to you.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate it. Whenever I give a public speech talk or I used to do stand-up comedy, you always say, keep it going for Drew, keep it going for Drew, because you want to keep the energy going with the crowd applauding. So I imagine everyone watching here, before we get started, I want to say I'm based in Los Angeles. You heard who I was. I'll be sharing my story, and I'd love to hear your stories as well. So can everyone in the chat box tell me where they're coming from today? And I'm coming from Los Angeles, and I would love to know where we're all reaching today from, because as Drew mentioned, I went to Vanderbilt. I graduated in 2000, so I'm always excited to talk to Commodores. I've actually collaborated with a lot of Commodores professionally and people that are Vandy alum that I will be highlighting today in the PowerPoint as well. Make sure you stick around at the end.
From Boston, Los Angeles, Tampa, Florida, Chicago, Portland, Maine, Nashville, Indianapolis, Atlanta. A very a range of people here today.
Amazing.
Houston,
I love
Dallas.
Cool. Well, thank you. I cannot see those chats for some reason, so let me know if you get questions. I want to make this as collaborative as possible, where people they feel like they can talk and be a part of the conversation. So let's make this a conversation. So cool. So we have everyone from east, west, coast, south, north, all over the country. Amazing. So welcome everyone. And enough of me. We're going to take a quick break from not seeing me. We're going to stop sharing, so see ya. Drew, how did the slides look?
I can't see your presentation yet.
Okay, let me share the presentation. And
there we go.
We looking good?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, cool. And Drew, you're going to be around if because I can't see the questions.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I want to make sure that we get the people to be heard, because I want to make this as interactive as possible. Because you know what? This is all about the people in the end of the day. It's not about Drew. It's not about me. It's not even about Vanderbilt. It's all about helping you all to collaborate with influencers and grow a power network. Even if you don't think you're an expert, don't have a platform, or even just have a small customer base. Because it sounds like Drew was saying that some people here are recent graduates. So we have folks that are newly in the professional world, as well as some old folks, like myself, who are class of 2000, who are trying to step up our game as seasoned professionals. So we have a diverse group. We're going to hit all the notes as much as possible. And this is my book, The Influencer Economy, as Drew mentioned. It's how to launch your idea, share it with the world to thrive in the digital age. If you want to find out more information about my podcast, my book, and my work, go to influencereconomy.com. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at RyanJWill. If you tweet me a question right now, I will read it on the webinar. I'll be having my Twitter chat open as we speak. But really excited here. You can check it out on Amazon. Feel free to leave a review if you do buy the book, because I love to hear from readers. So as Drew mentioned, I performed stand-up comedy back in the day. And anytime, you give a webinar, talk, or presentation, it's really important to share your story. And I wanted to let you know that I've actually performed in Nashville, Tennessee, at Zany's Club and around the East Coast. When I did stand-up comedy, I dealt with rejection. I really put myself out there. I pivoted, and I realized I wanted to play the long game, because I was a clinically depressed stand-up comedian. And I will let you be the judge if I was funny or not. Drew, do you think I was funny as a clinically depressed stand-up comedian?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we'll go with that. we'll go with that. But I ended up, beer cans all over my living room with comedy note cards written on my desk. Envision linens all over the floor. They hadn't been made for weeks on end. And I had dishes stacked just nonstop to the ceiling from my dirty plates and bowls, and I struggled to breathe. And stand-up comedy helped me get out. And I realized that I didn't have to be the star. I didn't have to headline Zanies to make it. I went to Vanderbilt, had an amazing degree, and I could use my marketing skills. And I was really good at booking venues. So I could get 100 people to fill a dive bar in a Washington, D.C. neighborhood, and these Comedy Central headliners would text me, "How do you do this?" I get 5 people in my neighborhood show, and you can get 100 people. So I understood that, playing the long game, pivoting my work, I could actually be much better at marketing than performing. So I came to Los Angeles. My first job actually was at a startup. I was talking to Drew about this. A guy named Oliver Luckett, who went to Vanderbilt, he hired me to be the first marketing team member for a company called Digisend. And we got acquired by Disney for $16 million. It's my first job at a startup, really exciting. And after I left Digisend, I went to a company called Machinima. And who here has played Minecraft? Let me know in the comments if you've played Minecraft, if your cousins played it, if you're old enough, your kids have played it. But we helped launch Minecraft. Our team was this hungry startup, and I pivoted my career from stand-up, moving over to marketing, and we raised money from Google, YouTube. This is a venture-backed startup. We ended up getting acquired for $150 million by Warner Brothers just this last year. And we launched Minecraft. And Minecraft, incidentally, was bought for $2.5 billion. And what I realized was on the interweb and even offline with networks that clusters of influential people are how you grow a power network. So we had YouTube creators that were making these videos, these gameplay videos of them playing Minecraft, showing them, the fans in our community, how to play the game, and we crashed Minecraft's website, Minecraft.com. We launched their alpha, their beta, and ultimately they got acquired for $2.5 billion. I thought, wow, this is amazing. These influencers online on YouTube with 50,000 to 100,000 YouTube subscribers created a global phenomenon. They were the kindling to start the fire. And so I did a lot of data and research. I realized that influencer does not equal followers. And in this webinar today, we're going to be talking about networking online and offline. But I want to reiterate, influencer does not equal followers. Your follower count does not matter. It's a vanity metric. And these machinima influencers, these gamers that were playing Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, that launched Minecraft, that didn't have 1 million followers, that had 100,000 YouTube subscribers, clusters of them move the internet to create movements. So this is my quick background. I mentioned Oliver Luckett helped me at Digisend, and I want to give you a background. A lot of times I worked with startups, and this is my career in California primarily was helping venture capital companies raise funding and getting acquired, or in the instance with States, you probably have never heard of it. Funny story is, Drew, I had a bunch of alpha testers for State.com, this venture-backed company that were my college ambassadors a long time ago, and we raised $14 million and went out of business. So a lot of these companies I worked for either were acquired or went out of business. It's high risk, high reward. And Drew, let me know, please, if we have any comments or questions.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, cool. And as I went through my career, I realized, what was an influencer? I was realizing, like, what makes a dent in the world? And I'm not talking about people that get paid to tweet, that look sexy in blue jeans, or people that are really hot on Instagram get a bunch of likes. Because if I get a bunch of likes on Instagram and I'm a model, but all my fans are guys and I'm a female model, but I'm selling products to women, like, is that really the right demographic that I'm reaching? So I researched and talked to a bunch of influential people, and an influencer is someone who can create a movement around their idea through collaboration, community passion, and a shared vision. Influencers can change a small idea into a world-changing idea very quickly, seemingly overnight, and influence is gained through collaboration, often in a specific niche, and has nothing to do with vanity metrics like followers, likes, or impressions. And what I realized was a mascot is not an influencer. Celebrities are not influencers online. They're not social media drivers. I looked at the Instagram of Ryan Seacrest. He's a cultural shapeshifter, but he gets 1% like per follower on his Instagram. So even though he has a lot of followers and he gets a lot of likes, the conversion is 1%. That's terrible. I hate celebrity endorsements. I live in LA. Everyone here wants to work with celebrities. It's my friend I grew up with, works for Snoop Dogg's ad agency and was telling me that everyone wants to work with Snoop. So what they did was they built their business around getting their foot in the door with Snoop Dogg for the clients, like Adidas, and then building campaigns around everything else. Because celebrities can help you get press and PR and attention, but they're not influencers, they're mascots. And this is a slide presentation I gave directly a couple years ago to my boss. He wanted Kim Kardashian to invest in our startup, and Ashton Kutcher and Lady Gaga and celebrities like that. And I says, look, I think, I want to do the data. So these are bit.ly links that I tracked on Twitter and social media to figure out the conversion for how people share links like celebrities. And I ended up tracking Kim, and she promoted Keeping Up with Kardashians. I won't ask who has watched the show because I imagine it's probably at least 75% of the webinar. And she shared her link 5 times to the show. It drove 83,000 clicks. That's a lot of clicks. Don't get me wrong, a lot of clicks. But it's 0.46 conversion. That's worse than a banner ad. I hate banner ads. I don't like banner ads. I can't stand banner ads. So her follower ratio of 83,000 clicks to 18 million followers is worse than a banner ad. Now what's noteworthy here is the first 48 hours, she crushed it. She got nearly 77,000 clicks the first 2 days. That is incredible, and that's really remarkable. But in the grand scheme of things, if you have a club in Vegas and you want Kim Kardashian to tweet about it, it's not going to move the needle. And you can't depend on social media influencers that are celebrities. You have to find these influential people to build your network that are influential online in clusters. So these are a couple of testimonials of people I worked with. Just to give you my background now, because I worked with best-selling authors. I worked with Snoop Dogg. He was my client. I helped Nir Eyal. He wrote this really good book called Hooked. If anyone here is working in tech, I highly recommend it. It's called How to Build Habit-Forming Products. And he said when I turned to Ryan, he truly understood how to reach people, and he did an amazing job at launching my podcast, proving he's better and smarter, works harder, and gets better results than anyone else I could have hired. So I help people with brand coaching, building power networks online and offline, as well as telling their stories online. So ultimately, I worked with Snoop Dogg and my friend Ryan Ford, who I grew up with. But ultimately, I collaborate with influencers to grow my base. And I'd love to share with you a lot of my secrets because I collaborated with Seth Godin, brilliant author, Brad Feld. He's a mega tech investor out of Techstars, who my friend Coleman Green from Vanderbilt actually introduced me to because he went through the Techstars incubator. And Derek Sivers, who's written a lot of great books. And then you look at here, Willie Geist of the Today Show. He came on my podcast that I wrote my book around. Willie's in my book. He went to Vanderbilt. He was in my fraternity way back in the day. And he's reachable now. Influential people are reachable through email. Adam Grant is a best-selling author, Nir Eyal, who I mentioned, and I'm now a writer for Inc. Magazine, HuffPost, Success Magazine, USA Today, because I was able to collaborate with influential people and raise my profile. So you're in the right place if you have a company, you're building products, you're growing your customer base, you try to launching your business and need to build your customer base, you have a big vision you haven't executed, you're a newbie or a seasoned pro looking to increase revenues, and you want to put in the work to learn more about the framework to collaborate with your team. So Drew, I wanted to offer something. Can I offer something to the group here?
Certainly.
So whenever I give webinars to my high school, my college, or friends, communities, I offer something. If people buy my book on Kindle within the next 24 hours and email me the receipt, I offer a week of free email consultation with me. And we can talk about anything you learned today. And so if people want to email me, ryan@influencereconomy.com, show me the receipts that you bought the book on Kindle. It's $9.99. That's really not much money, and I will give you consultation over email. I do this all the time. I love helping others, and email is a lot easier way to communicate with me because y'all went to Vanderbilt or you're connected to the family or the network somehow. Just email me the receipt, ryan@influencereconomy.com, and we'll help you launch, share, and thrive to build your power network. So I wanted to offer that at the top. And thank you, Drew, for letting me do that because I don't want people to feel like this is something they have to do, but I love helping others. And, I mentioned I went back to Vanderbilt about a year ago, and I spoke in front of an entrepreneurship class with a group of kids over a brown bag lunch. I also take a lot of meetings, people that move to LA that want to connect and network with me. So I follow on LinkedIn, and I always want to help, pay it back with Vanderbilt, especially because Vanderbilt teaches a lot of people how to, become professionals. But growing your network, reaching influencers, that's a lot of hard skills that I think a lot of people need after college. So Seth Godin is someone I wrote about in the book. He talks about, leading with influence. And influence is really making a dent in the world. And connecting with influencers that are powerful. You want to find people that are making a dent. People that if you check Google in 20 years, let's presume Google will be around in 20 years, that they're going to show up in the results. Not a bunch of people that look sexy in blue jeans that get a bunch of Instagram likes, that are a bunch of no talent zeros. So Seth Godin says a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, to a leader, connected to an idea. For millions of years, human beings have been part of a tribe one way or another. A group needs two things to be a tribe: a shared interest and a way to communicate. And ultimately, I want to add something here. It's a way to collaborate. You need a way to collaborate with people to connect with a tribe and to lead. And so ultimately, these are the book principles that I talk about in the influencer economy, about how I actually made these emojis a couple years ago to connect with younger people. And then my parents use emoji, so I guess I'm using this to connect with my parents as well. But ultimately, these are the theories that I'll talk about today. Are, anytime you want to collaborate with influential people, like these are the habits of influencers, right? These are how influencers think and they act. And so if you want to collaborate with influential people, craft a big vision, figure out a way to get your foot in the door. The second is pick a platform. Think of a channel to collaborate with the influencer. For me, I use the podcast. I got my foot in the door. I've been podcasting for over 3 years, and I got to reach Willie Geist of the Today Show, authors like Seth Godin, people that were way out of my weight class because I had a platform and I have a channel. I recommend a lot of people, they start blogging and they do Q&As with influential people, and to not just ask for coffee, right? Don't just ask for coffee to pick people's brain. Come with them and be like, hey, I wrote this article, or hey, I have a product I'm working on, or hey, I'd love to talk to you about this job I'm interviewing for. Like, have purpose and pick a platform and a channel to reach people. Book your own gigs is the only emoji I made. It's of Jay-Z, and all these others are in Apple. Thought Jay-Z needed an emoji. Book your own gigs. You got to do the outreach yourself. Do the email pitches. Figure out a way to reach people on LinkedIn. Find ways to go to conferences to connect with people. And ultimately, you got to do all the hard work yourself. Also, adopt technology early. Think about what platforms people are on. If people are on Twitter, reach them that way. If people are, leveraging Instagram, find ways to connect that way. Emails. Think about emails, right? We're all reachable on email. Sadly, I check my email every morning, often in bed. I hate to admit that. But yeah, we are addicted to email. It's never going away. 5 is strive for authenticity. Think about ways you can reach people that are real. Don't ask for favors. Never put people to pressure them into committing yes or no with what they're doing. Think about how to authentically connect. When I pitch people to come on my podcast, I genuinely was curious about Willie Geist coming on my podcast to talk about his book. I wanted Nir Eyal to come on and talk about Hooked, how to build habit-forming products. And I wanted Chris Hartwig of Nerdist to come on and talk about his big company. And I was authentic. And then getting back to my vision, I pitched the bigger vision. I said, I'm writing a book. I want you to come on my podcast to talk about the book topics. Then I featured all these people in my book, right? And then I got them in to build a long-term relationship. Now I'm friends with a lot of these people that I pitched to come on my podcast to write about my book. You may say, oh my God, Ryan, this sounds like a lot of work. Yes, it is. Number 6, you want to collaborate. You want to collaborate. There's something in YouTube called the collab. It's when I go on your YouTube channel and you go on my YouTube channel. So ultimately, or actually before I move on, Drew, I want to ask a question to everyone. Number 5, I want to ask people what their definition of authentic is. Because I'd love, and I'd be curious, Drew, if you have an opinion. No worries if not, but authenticity is a word. It's very brand heavy. It's very advertising heavy. And people talk about authenticity, and I get a lot of definitions of it. And so I'm always curious if people have comments as well, like what they think authenticity is.
Someone just typed in real.
Real, okay. And the definition I've gotten is that you are authentic if your actions match your words, and if your words back up your actions. And that's really, people would call that integrity, but integrity is very formal. But authenticity is, I say this and I do this, and they match up and they align. So yeah, Drew, please feel free to interrupt me if anyone else has a definition, because that's something I always talk about, that I have a love-hate relationship with the word authentic, because sometimes people say, like, you got to be authentic, but authenticity is something you don't really know until you see it. and you can explain it only once it's happening, and you can't really articulate it without seeing it, because you can't just explain what authenticity is. You have to practice it. So number 6 is collaboration. You got to collaborate with these people. Build Power Network, you got to get in the right room with them at the right time, at the right moment. And that could be in real life, it could be online, it could be via webinar. Who knows where it is? But always have your radar up to collaborate with influencers. And number 7, you got to capture lightning in a bottle. You got to find out, if you have a business, who are your customers? I always recommend you find your top 3 customer avatar, or what I like to call your persona. And you figure out who your top 3 customers are, and you double down on them, right? You say, okay, I'm making my product for you. You are my influencers. You may not be my major customer buyer. You're not buying. You're not going to make or break my business, but you're the type of person I want to work with for the rest of my life, or the rest of the duration of the company or the business. That's capturing lightning in a bottle. Number 8, you got to meet people in real life. You got to go to events. We all hate to network. I hate getting business cards with people with clammy hands, like they're a politician, work in the room, kissing babies, shaking hands. Like, I went to South by Southwest. I go, nearly every year. A couple of years ago, I went. Some guy's literally giving me his business card while I'm in the bathroom. And it's like, come on, bro, take it easy. But ultimately, you got to put yourself out there in the right way, at the right time, with the right people. You have to open doors for other people. You have to be a giver. There's a really good book called Give and Take. Adam Grant is a prolific author from Wharton, teaches business school there. I interviewed him for my podcast. He wrote a book blurb for me, and he actually is quoted in the book about givers. And 99% of the influencers I've worked with or interviewed or collaborate with are givers. You have to help others. And Adam Grant talks about 3 types of people. I want to spend a second talking, discussing this. Is there's givers, and there's takers, and there's matchers. And the paradigm means most of us are matchers. It means I help you, you help me. Drew helps me, I help him. It's survival, right? But then there's a class of people that are takers, and we know who they are. You try to eliminate them in your life, but you realize you have to work with takers, right? And figure out how to navigate them. But ultimately, givers, right? Givers succeed the most, and they fail the most. And they fail the most because they get taken advantage of. And givers often, they come late, or they stay late at work. They come in early. They mentor. They do things that don't show up in the stat sheet. They often don't get the raises they deserve because they can't articulate the metrics that they've created for themselves. And so you have to give with your self-interest. So give by opening doors for others. And finally, you have to give your community ownership. If you have customers, you find those top influencers, you build them into the process. I'll give you a quick case study. When I wrote my book, and it took 2 years to write it, I gave it for free to people that sign up for my email list. So I have an email list. If you go to my website, I have a bunch of handbooks and guidelines and influencer outreach templates that I give people, and I love it. And I gave my audience my book, and I said, hey, here's a Google document. My book's coming out in 2 months. Please give me feedback on the book. I'll give you an editor title if you give me the feedback, and I'll give you a shout out in the book, even if you don't help me. But my wife's like, you're an idiot. Like, no joke, my wife said to me, you're going to bed. She said, you're an idiot. You are not going to make any money, and I want you to make money off this book. And I said, I think it's a good idea. And she said, you're still you're still an idiot. And welcome to marriage. So I then got feedback from my book. I pivoted parts of the book because of the feedback, right? So 1, I gave the ownership to the community. They made my book better. 2, I ultimately got 100 crowd editors in my book that I gave shout-outs, right? 3, the first people to buy my book and leave a review on Amazon were the crowd editors because they bought into my book. They were helping to grow my product because I allowed them to cook with me. I always talk about going to Benihana. You got to cook with your community. Benihana, the chef comes out, he does fancy tricks. When you cook with your community, you give them ownership, you give them a transparency where they feel like they're part of the collaboration process. And ultimately, there's 3 collaboration styles. So we think about networking and building bridges and relationships with folks. And Drew, how do I sound? Am I sounding okay? I just want to move the mic a little bit. Okay, cool. So there's 3 collaboration styles. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. There's the collaborator, the influencer, and the normal. And the collaborator is about 10% of the people you network with. These are your friends, they're techies, your regulars, your ambassadors. I look at your collaborators like they're the people that, if you own a bar, they're the regulars that come to happy hour every Friday. They go to, what is it, the Tin Roof in Nashville, or they go to the Station Inn, or they go to, trying to jog my memory of local Nashville bars that are still there. Springwater, Gold Rush. They're the regulars that show up every Friday, and they drink and they bring their friends in, and they're the people that connect you to others. I can talk a lot about weak ties and strong ties here. If anyone's familiar with this, let me know in the comments. But there's three types of ties. There's no ties, there's weak ties, and there's strong ties. And just taking a step back for a minute, these are your collaborators. The people that are your strong ties, they're the people that you worked with next to at your job for 3 years. They're your friends from high school, college. They're your family, and they're your strong ties. But oftentimes your strong ties can't help you. My friends from Vanderbilt that live in Nashville, Atlanta, that are working in real estate, they can't help me build my network in California for entrepreneurship and marketing and branding. They're just not in that world. They're my best friends. I love them dearly, but they're strong ties. Your weak ties, those are the collaborators, the people that maybe you meet once at a conference, or maybe Drew and I, right? We've had a couple conversations. We're not best friends. I'm not going to be in his wedding. He's not going to be in mine. But maybe in 3 months, Drew needs help with something, and he emails me. So we're a weak tie. And your weak tie is where 90% of your networking happens. So let's say you meet someone at a conference 3 years ago. You have their email. You've corresponded a couple times. Let's say you buy my book today and you email with me, and I give you advice for a week, and we help find out how to build your network better. And then in 6 months, you move to LA and we get coffee. I'm a weak tie. And then you ask me for career advice, and then I help you find a job, right? Those are weak ties. So when thinking about networking, don't just think about asking your best friends or your people in your inner circle or your friends that you worked with for 5 years at your job for help, because you can't always rely on them. You may burn out the relationship. You have to go outside of that group. So think about your weak ties, and that's your collaborator base that you want to focus on. Then secondarily, you have your influencers. Influencers are people that can move the needle. Drew's an influencer, right? Drew's here today. He's connecting the knowledge from this webinar to the Vanderbilt community. He's connecting me to the community more. He's an industry leader. He's an authority, right? He's giving opportunities for us both to grow networks together. And influencers aren't these Kardashian types. They're people that are your leaders in your industry. If you want to get startup capital, they're a key venture capitalist. If you want to work with Microsoft, like Microsoft's an influencer, right? But before you work with Microsoft, you got to find the collaborators. You got to find people that are in your network that you can work with first, that maybe they're not going to pay you a lot of money, but they'll give you a testimonial. Maybe they're not going to break your bank account and let you buy a new Porsche, but they're going to help you buy your truck or your Prius and give you the proof of concept to build out your product base. So influencers, are people in your leader circle that you want to associate with, collaborate with, or partner with that can game change your business. Like I mentioned before, they can make your business grow seemingly overnight, right? They can make a small idea big in a matter of minutes. And then finally, they're your normals, right? So the collaborators are about 10% of your network. Your influencers are about 1% of your network. And then 89% of your network are normals. They're the buyers, the mass market consumers, and they're everyone you work with when your product's out there. And they don't necessarily, you may never even meet them. Because if you have 100 customers for your product, you're not going to network with all the 100 people here. But these are the folks that maybe they see you talk at a conference. Maybe you're on a panel doing a happy hour event where you're mentoring people about work. Or there are people that are very much on the periphery. And for today, I'd love you to focus on your collaborators, kind of the people on your weak ties that you can build a network around, and then your influencers. Those are the people that are game changers that maybe you don't want to reach out to now because you only get one shot to knock it out with them. So I want to talk to you about my father-in-law. Who here is married? Feel free to comment in the webinar chat. I'm married. My wife's from North Carolina, and my father-in-law Joe Moore he's very much a father-in-law. We agree or we disagree. We love each other, or sometimes we don't love each other. But ultimately, we hang out a lot. And he doesn't really know the influencer economy. He doesn't know my work at Machinima. I do brand coaching for executives, and he doesn't really know why anyone would need a brand coach to tell their stories for public speaking. So I said to him, he's at my kitchen table visiting me from North Carolina. He has a company that is called Joe Moore Company. They do boiler repair. And they ultimately, throughout the Southeast, they service boilers for, big companies. And I said, Joe, what's it like building a platform? How do you build a platform for yourself? And he said, actually, Ryan, anytime you want to build a network or sales opportunities or collaborate, you got to give people something they can't get anywhere else in quite the same way. You have to develop a knowledge or skill that most people don't have and then share it with them. and solve pain points. So when you want to collaborate with influencers and grow your power network, think about giving these people something they don't have. Could be knowledge, could be an article they want to read, could be offering to write a blog post about them, could be offering to make an introduction on their behalf. I've met so many people that have given me introductions and helped me to grow my network, and vice versa. I've helped others grow their network. And then influence comes back, and again, these givers succeed when they have their interests aligned with their giving. They develop a knowledge or skill most people don't have and then share it with them, right? If you're really the smartest person in the room about that one thing I need to know about, like for me, it's about how to grow influence and business influence and online influence. I'm the best in the world at that. I guarantee I am. And so I can share that skill with almost anyone in a couple minutes. And I've honed my story to do that in a way that projects my authority, allows me to connect with people emotionally, and then gives me an opportunity to show the problems I'm solving. You have to solve pain points. You can't just network to network. If you just network to keep in touch, that's great. But if you can't help me down the line, then I may lose that relationship with you because there's no mutual win-win. You got to make it a win-win. You just can't ask people for help continually. When I had Willie Geist on the Today Show, join my podcast, I didn't ask him to be podcast guest number 1, 2, 3, or 10. He was podcast guest number 25. I had to build that social proof with my collaborators before I went to the influencers. And I also wanted to show Willie I was legit, and I wasn't desperate for him to come on my podcast because he's famous and he's well-known and he's a respected media. He's on Morning Joe and he's on the Today Show on Sundays, and he's very well-known. And I wanted to show, hey, I can help you reach an audience by solving a pain point for you. I want you to tell your story to my community because I've established it as a podcast host. So think about my father-in-law when you network about giving people something they can't get anywhere else, developing that knowledge or skill, or solving pain points. And so, Drew, I want to just take a quick breather and ask folks if they have questions. They can feel free to ask away. I'll keep going, but I know that we've been talking for a couple minutes now, and so I'm always aware of the community of people on the webinar if they want to follow up on something before they forget. And also offer if people want to buy the book and then email me the receipt, I will give them a week of free email consultation about anything to grow their power network. We can dive into it, and I love doing this and helping, especially fellow Vanderbilt alumni. My email is ryan@influencereconomy.com. So then radical collaboration is a big theme of the work I do, right? It's like collaborating radically is you go out of your way to collaborate with customers, with your collaborators, with influencers. And this is Hannah Hart. I interviewed a lot of people about her for the book. Anyone here heard of her? She has a show on YouTube called My Drunk Kitchen. You guessed it. She gets drunk and cooks in her kitchen. It's a very easy concept to, yeah.
We had a comment that came in. Someone said, interesting point on not being desperate. I tend to find in the sales world that the more I need to sell, the less authentic I become.
Yeah, totally. Does that person have a name? Okay.
Yeah, Michael.
Okay, hey, Michael. Yeah, so Michael, exactly. So I have a recommendation that whenever I email someone who's very influential or I want to work with or in sales, I write no worries if not in the email because I don't want the pressure for them to feel like, hey, you have to take my advice, or hey, you have to work with me, or hey, you have to hire me. Because ultimately, I don't want to feel that desperate, like Michael's saying, because if I want to close the deal, psychologically, it's like if you're at a bar and you're talking to someone you want to date or at least go out with or at least have a conversation with, you can't pretend like that's the last you're hard up for the conversation. You have to articulate yourself with confidence. And that's why when you get a job, right, and you need, like when you go to your boss and say, I need a promotion, and they're like, no, I'm not going to give you the promotion, then you get a job offer somewhere else, and then your company has to match that offer. It's the same type of mentality. And so I always say no worries if not. And some people need to frame it in their own way because that may not work for you, but I feel like no worries if not takes the pressure off that, hey, you have to commit. Because last thing I want to do is get you to say no. Like if I reach an influencer, I want them to say yes or say not now. And ultimately, saying yes is the end game. And you may say not now, but in a year you could say yes. Right? Like let's say Drew and I were talking and I really wanted to do a webinar and I was super green and I had no experience, and I'm emailing with Drew, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so excited to do my first webinar. Drew's going to think, oh, hold the phone. Why would we, let's make sure, Ryan, let me see a webinar you've done, you know? But when I emailed with Drew, I said, here's my talk at Google. I gave the Google Author Talk last year. Here's my book. Here's my podcast. I showed him the data that backed up that I could present. And there was a confidence there. And to be honest, if Drew said, hey, Ryan, we got bigger fish to fry, I'm not going to book you, I would say no worries if not. I'd still love to do it, but maybe we can do it in the spring. And ultimately, you have to have that kind of confidence, poise, and authenticity where you believe you're the best in the world of what you're doing, or you may as well not be doing it. Like, it's not worth it if you're not the best in the world. And so ultimately, that no worries if not, like, that's just a reminder for me. Whenever I always recommend you send an email to someone, you proofread it or you read it out loud, is you want to build a, you want to build that, my microphone fell down. You want to, sorry about that. You want to have a confidence that you're giving them an exit strategy, right? And so Joe Moore, like when he gives people a skill that they don't have, he told me he gives people enough to make them dangerous. And then sure enough, they'll call him back in like, a day and say, hey, I need you to come down to Atlanta to fix our boilers. So he gives that free advice up to the point where he knows that they're going to have to hire him to execute on the boiler. So with Hannah, she actually solved problems for her community. You think like, oh, this YouTuber that does a My Drunk Kitchen show, what is she going to teach me? Well, she went to the YouTube comments for her channel, and people wanted her to go on a tour. They said, Hannah, we want you to come get drunk in our kitchen and cook. And of course, she can't do that. What she did was Hello Heart of the Tour, rented a Winnebago, and the most people, she crowdfunded a campaign, and the Indiegogo, she raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a tour. She would go to your house, and pick people in different cities. So the most cities that she got feedback on, she would go and prioritize them and pick someone at random to have them come to Winnebago, cook drunk, and make a YouTube video that was getting hundreds of thousands of views. Then internationally, people from Canada, Australia, England, they bought her perks, and they ended up, she did a global tour. So she heard their problems, right? That's what I'm saying with the pitch. You got to pitch people in a way where you hear their problems, you galvanize your community and your influencers around bigger projects, and you launch together. You always want to build with the influencer to make sure they endorse you before it goes out. You don't want to say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Can you share it on LinkedIn? That's the worst thing, right? Hey, I wrote this post. I get this all the time. Can you tweet it out? Sure. But, like, why don't you tell me in advance you're going to do this, and then maybe get some feedback from me, get some collaborative elements to it, not just asking me to tweet. Never ask people to tweet. I get a lot of emails. I have a podcast. I've interviewed Willie Geist from the Today Show, Seth Godin, all these major YouTubers that you maybe have heard of, like Flula Borg, Freddie Wong of Rocket Jump, Bernie Burns of Rooster Teeth, best-selling authors like Dan Ariely. I could go on and on. I get pitched daily. I mean, no joke, Drew. I get pitches that say "Dear Influencer," and it's like, what? Like, can you spend 2 minutes to read my website and give me the respect that shows, hey, like, I get what you do? And then people will they'll respond in a week, hey, you never followed up, influencer. It's like, spend the time. Spend 5 minutes to actually just do the research. So when I think about radical collaboration, I want you to grab a pen and paper right now and define what you do better than anyone else, right? Think about what you do better than anyone else. Even if you're just out of college, you do one thing really well that's related to your industry. It could be super niche, super specific, right? So for me, when I was writing my book, I'll use myself as a guinea pig. I'm the only podcaster writing a book on influencer and collaboration, right? That's a big idea. The influencer economy. If I said to Drew, hey, do you want to be a part of the influencer economy? I mean, Drew would say, wait, yeah, I mean, I'm an influencer. I make money. I'm part of the economy. I'm relevant. And I didn't realize that. But the word influencer economy, the terminology, was a compliment to people. I didn't realize it at the time, but people want to be a part of it. And so I want you to think about your micro-influencers, right? So I want you to do this now. And this is what I'm saying. You can email this to me, ryan@influencereconomy.com, after the webinar. I'll give you some feedback if you check out my book. But think about 15 influencers you look up to, right? Think about micro-influencers. Think about the undervalued influencers. Think about Moneyball. Think about the book, in the movie that Brad Pitt starred in, and Billy Bean is the focal point. He's his Oakland Athletics general manager. He couldn't compete with the Red Sox, and he and couldn't compete with the Yankees, so he needed to find new stats in baseball. And he found on-base percentage was a better stat for him than batting average. And so for you, think about the stats that matter for you. For my micro-influencers, they weren't Willie Geist. I'll be honest. I love Willie, dear friend. He's not my micro-influencer. Adam Grant, business author from Wharton, who wrote best-selling book Give and Take, is my micro-influencer. Nir Eyal, best-selling author of Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products, Silicon Valley technologist, my micro-influencer. James Altucher, choose yourself author, host of a podcast, micro-influencer. I had a very specific niche that I wanted to collaborate with. Best-selling authors, teachers, and business people that were in the self-help world. That was my micro-influencer, right? Think about people, when you zig, they zag. Like, you don't want to just go after everyone. Everyone wants to meet Techstars founder Brad Feld, right? I interviewed him for my podcast. I was very fortunate. My friend from Vanderbilt hooked me up with him. But he's not a micro-influencer for me. He's very unreachable. So I need to think about like local influencers in my neighborhood, my network, and my current community, and let's write a list of 15 people that you look up to, and let's find roadmaps to meet them. And this is Brad, who I just talked about. You know, when you're reaching out to these influencers, you know, oftentimes when you collaborate with folks, you don't need a defined goal. And Brad started his blog in the early 2000s, feld.org, and he just said, if you want to pilot new ideas, find areas where there are low barriers of entry and define a new category, right? No one wants to collaborate and grow a network with the guy that's doing the same old thing or the gal that's doing the same old thing. If you're selling lamps, you better make your lights stand out. They glow in the dark. They work in the middle of a field, and you don't need batteries. They're charged by the sun, right? Like, you need to get excited, pitch that big vision, lead a new category. I'm defining influence. If you want to make a dent in the world, this is how you grow influence. Influencers not a celebrity. Those people are mascots. Influencers make game-changing ideas seemingly come overnight. And if I want you to make a dent in the world, you know, come on my podcast, work with me, come into my webinar. Like, I pitch a big idea. And ultimately, a webinar is a low barrier of entry. A podcast, a blog, a LinkedIn post. I recommend go to medium.com, write a blog, just put it out there. Medium.com, it's free, register. Tell your personal journey. I graduated from Vanderbilt. I'm now working in biotech. These are 3 things I believe, right? I just went to med school, and I'm going to do my residency at the Cleveland Clinic, and these are 3 things that I love to do with my job. And think about how you can lead new categories. Put yourself out there. Try things that are easy to do, and just do them once, a couple times. Get the reps under your belt. I now have 100 podcasts, right? That's a lot of podcasts. I'm in the 1% of podcasts with listens and episodes. I have PR companies sending me books all the time to get guests to come on. I have these marvelous TED Talk people that have been viewed hundreds of millions of times that are pitching me to come on my podcast because I started early, and then there's a low barrier of entry to do the podcast. Do I make a lot of money podcasting? I make a decent amount of money, right? It's one of my 4. I have a lot of different incomes. It's probably my 4th most important income, but that's going to change, and it's going to double next year. So think about that. Especially in the new economy, can you do side hustles and side ideas that you can scale over time? So another idea I have, you know, for you all to take actions immediately after this is make your ideas real, buy domains, and buy for your ideas, for your blogs, for your websites, for your products. Create logos. Just pay your friend $50 to make a logo for you. Write a blog post like I mentioned with your point of view in business or life. Like, go to medium.com, wordpress.com, figure out how to write a blog post. Then validate your work in 3 ways. Why am I the best at what I do? I'm the best at the Influencer Economy podcast because I'm a former stand-up. I love connecting with audience. I had a power network of machinima gamers as guests that could tweet out, Facebook, share to their communities all my episodes that they were in. And I'm writing a book, and I need to research these influencers like Celeste Godin. Collab, collab, collab. There's one thing I can stress to you today. I want to take you back to the collab. It's a way to gain new audience. And the metaphor I mentioned, I highlighted a little bit earlier. I'm going to go in depth. And Drew, what's our time looking like here? I don't want to go too long.
We typically wrap up in the hour, so about 13 more minutes.
And then we'll do the Q&A then, or do you want to do the Q&A sooner?
It would be better if we could do the Q&A before.
Okay, cool. I'll wrap it up. I'll do about okay, cool. I'll do 3 minutes left, and then I'll close out.
Okay, great.
And then we'll cool. So collab. The collab on YouTube is when, let's say, Drew, what's a hobby of yours, or what's an interest you have, or what's something you read about today in sports that you could do a YouTube channel on?
I mean, I do a lot of professional development type
Okay,
stuff.
let's say Drew has a professional development YouTube channel that has 100,000 subscribers, and he talks about how to get your first job. Let's say I have a YouTube channel that has 1,000. Let's say I have 5,000 subscribers, and it's about how to get a job in the shoe industry. Very niche. So the YouTube collab, the metaphor here is I go on YouTube on Drew's channel. He has 100,000 subscribers. He's a career development professional, public speaker. I get wide audience because I'm on Drew's channel. Let's say Drew's channel is Drew's Careers for You, right? So I go on Drew's Careers for You, 100,000 subscribers. I get to appear in his video. We collab. Then Drew comes on. Let's say it's influencer shoes. Influencer Shoe Club is my 5,000 subscribe channel. Very small, very niche. Drew comes on my show, and I talk about shoes and careers. Very niche, and he gets only a small bump, right? But he's paying it forward. He's collaborating with me, and he's getting a niche expertise, a niche authority. So always remember, the big influential person that you want to reach also wants to maintain relevancy and help others because they were helped. When Willie Geist, Adam Grant, all these prolific writers wrote book blurbs for me, they equally wanted to help me because they were helped as authors. So when Drew collabs with me, I give him niche influence. I collab with him. I get mass influence because he's a bigger career professional. So ultimately, and again, if you email me, if you buy the book, send me the receipt at ryan@influencereconomy.com. I can send you the slides and then also give you some feedback for a week because I have a lot to do and a lot to share, and I want to make sure we get to the questions. Again, being a giver, very important. Be a giver with your self-interest aligned. If there's one thing I want you to remember today as a Vanderbilt graduate, be a giver with your own self-interest aligned. And so ultimately, I want to mention real fast, I do a coaching group for career professional development. It's called Influence Academy. It's a way to grow influence, collaborate with customers, grow your base for your business, and I'll help you generate leads, build a powerful relationship. So it's essentially what we do is we go in, and it's a 5-week program where you get you find your big vision, we build your network, galvanize your base of customers or network people that you're already collaborating with to help you reach influencers, to generate business and sales opportunities like Michael's talking about, to grow your influence in collaboration. So it's 5 weeks. We do weekly group calls with myself and other influencers. Everything has PDFs and video on demand as well. You do one-on-one calls with me, Q&As with other students, and we already launched it already. But it's going to go PDF, audio, video, 5-week, 5-module, and some testimonials, which I can share with you later. And ultimately, it's $497 for right now. And it's going to be $997 in January. I'm offering this for the Vanderbilt crowd at a steep discount because I love helping the community. You also will get free access to all my podcasts before they go live. So everything before they go live, you get free access to listen as well as give feedback on if you want to. You do the weekly chats with the influencers like this, like webinars, and then you get to ask future guests questions. And like I interviewed a screenwriter, Billy Ray, who wrote a best-selling a top screenplay for Hunger Games. He was nominated for Captain Phillips as an Oscar. He ended up not winning, but he told me how Tom Hanks saved his jobs on Captain Phillips. He was actually fired, and then I was able to get someone who's part of the program to ask a question about how to tell your brand story. So this is what we're doing. It's building your community, collaborating with influencers, and one-on-one calls with me. So I'd love to help you all. $497 now if you sign up. And again, email me after this. If you buy the book in the next 24 hours, I'll give you the free feedback and the slides over email. I love helping Vanderbilt folks. And Drew, let's open it up to the Q&A.
Yeah, we actually had a question come in from Keith. Is the book only available on Kindle?
It's available, and it's physical as well. Yeah, either way, which way you buy it, it works. I say Kindle because it's easier. I figure a lot of people on the webinar only read on Kindle. But yeah, if you like a physical book, it's available on Amazon as well. And my email is ryan@influencereconomy.com.
Okay, and here's a question that came in from Fred. If you're looking to make a career transition to a new job, how do you write email copy to cold pitch influential industry leaders? Do you have any written examples?
I do. I can send you a couple examples if you email me. But yeah, real quick, I would say make a killer headline. Your headline matters so much. Make it compelling. I often ask questions in my email headline, or there's something in comedy. It's called the power of three, where things come in three. Like if I tell Drew, I woke up today, I ate pizza for breakfast. I put my kids in the car, and I slipped on a banana peel. That's not funny, right? But it makes sense because things happen in three. So I always recommend you have three subject lines in the title, or you use a question or a call to action. And then you also need to research that person to pitch them the right way and show social proof. But I'll send you the templates if you email me, Fred. But like always show social proof. Don't just name drop to name drop or tell people how much money you make or say I make 6 figures. But if you've done a really cool case study, include that in the email so people don't have to mess around and not think you're a quality person. But yeah, I'll help you as a follow-up.
Great, and we had a question come in from Brittany, who's a food entrepreneur in DC, and she asked, should your micro-influencers be in the same industry category or a different one?
Actually, would you ask, hey, Brittany, what specifically is your niche? That's what I'd love to know.
She's a food entrepreneur in DC.
Okay, so I would say, yeah, if your customers are food people and people in the food and culinary industry, then they should be. Let's say I don't know exactly what you're doing, but like if you're pitching restaurants to use a product, then maybe start off with the micro influencers or the neighborhood restaurants, like Chef Jeff's. I used to live in DC, or Clyde's. Smaller restaurants. So think about, yeah, micro influencers should be in your industry because they give you the social proof. They're like the collaborators that then give you, like when I go reach out to Willie Geist, I have a lot of other authors already on my podcast because he's the big influencer. And when I go to Adam Grant, who wrote Give and Take, I have 5 other episodes with other relevant guests that he knows. So micro influencers, yes, the money ballers that I talk about are in your industry.
And can you repeat your email address slowly? Again, a couple people asked for that.
Yes, Ryan at influencereconomy.com. So that's my website, and just do Ryan at influencereconomy.com. Or tweet me at Ryan J. Will, and I can direct message you. But yeah, Ryan, R-Y-A-N, at influencereconomy.com. If you just Google my website right now on your iPhone, your Droid, your computer, then it just shows up, and there's a bunch of contact me buttons, and I'm pretty accessible over the digital age. And that's really what you realize, like with the more experience you get reaching influencers and power network people, is how everyone's reachable through email. You've got to hit the right notes. And I'm happy to send people. I have email templates and another PowerPoint video I can share for webinars around the copy you can use to reach influencers to pitch them. So email me, Ryan at influencereconomy.com, and I can send that.
Okay, and here's a question from Sherry. If you create a list of new pilot ideas, what's your recommendation for narrowing down the ideas?
I think that the pilot. Let's say you have 5 ideas to pilot, and I think you prioritize it. Like it's what I call your platform. So you have to think about that one thing that you can validate to make it the right move. That I would say the rule of 3. So go through and write down 3 bullet points for each of the pilot ideas. If you don't have 3 reasons to do it, then make it a lower priority. And then if you have 3 reasons, like with me, it was, why am I going to podcast? I like to connect with audiences. I'm a former stand-up. 2, I need to network with influencers to build relationships to get research for the book. And then 3, I wanted to actually write the book. And so it was going to help me get my foot in the door to be an author. And oftentimes people just want to try stuff to try it, which Brad Feld said is really good with no defined goals. But if you have a bunch of competing interests and you don't have time to just try everything, validate things and write 3 bullets and make sure those bullets count. And if you're doing the pilot for something, like I have an online course that I launched, and it's like I have 3 bullet points that are my thesis for the course. If I'm not teaching those 3 things, then then the course isn't worth doing.
That's actually a good segue to another question that we got. Is Is the influencer program geared towards entrepreneurs and small business owners? What about those who are looking to build a network for future career and job opportunities?
Yeah, I work with professionals as well as I work with three types of people: professionals that want to build a power network for the next job, that want to. What I talk about, you either need to pivot, double down, or segue with your career. You need to pivot, which means you need to reinvent yourself, which is very extreme. It's not something I recommend. You need to double down and say, okay, I'm doing this really well. How do I move up the ranks at my current job or my current industry? Or how do I segue? How do I take my expertise and make it from, oh, I was doing marketing for startups that were acquired for millions of dollars. I leveraged all that to write the book and do my new career trajectory. I didn't just rip it up and start from scratch. And so I help people do that, and then I help entrepreneurs launch their ideas and pilot their products. And the third group I talk about is platformers. And I think all of us are in that category. People that want to grow our platforms through launching a product, whether it's a podcast, book, online course, webinars, something that's a channel and a way to connect with influencers to really level up our game. So yeah, I work with a lot of professionals. Someone just sent me a Myers-Briggs study that they got taken to help analyze that to make sure that they're getting the most out of harnessing, if they're an introvert or an extrovert, or most of us are ambiverts, right, where we are a little bit of both.
Okay, and one final question, and we'll conclude today. Michael asked, how do you know when it's time to, quote unquote, cut bait on an idea and move on, or close a startup or whatever? When it is not going well, how have you chosen to close the chapter on what you are currently working on?
Yeah, it's really hard. I actually went through that with my podcast, where I almost shut it down. And I treat my podcast like a startup. And then I've done that with other startups where we ran out of money, right? So running out of money, that's the biggest factor. Is, are you losing money? Is it not sustainable? Is it hurting your other professional relationships or your friendships or your husband or wife or partner? Is it really affecting your health in a way with your business or your personal life, right? Is that a big deal? And for me, the podcast my wife was like, well, you're spending all this time on it, and we have kids, you have to work with them and be a father. And I was like, of course I want to be a great father, but the podcast for me wasn't making enough money, so I almost quit it. But what I realized was, like what I mentioned, you got double down, pivot, or segue. So I segued the podcast, and I'll be honest, totally transparent here, the reason how I can help monetize my podcast is by giving it as part of this program. And I give people access to the episodes before they come out, or I give people a chance to interview guests with a question ahead of time with someone in their industry that's a leader. And so for me, it comes down to money, your mental health, and your family. And look at those three factors to figure out, is this worth it? Because if you're broke and your company's hurting your family because you're not seeing your spouse or your significant other, and on top of it, you're not doing well mentally, then that's a good time to shut down a startup. But ultimately, that's the rub. And feel free to email me afterwards, Ryan@influencereconomy.com. I can share more anecdotes, because the mythology of an entrepreneur is you've got to never give up. You've got to never give up. So what I always recommend is, if you have a startup, keep your day job, or don't quit your day job, or get a new day job. Put the startup on ice. Just keep doing it on the weekends, make it a side hustle, and then let it grow organically without the pressure of having it to make a ton of money. And then maybe in 6 months, a year, or even 5 years, then it becomes your focal point, and you then still have that money and other opportunities with the day job.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you, Ryan, for that insightful presentation. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will be emailing everyone a recording of today's presentation, and I'll also include a link to a brief evaluation, and we'd love to hear your feedback on today's presentation. Best of luck to everyone as you work to build your network. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Drew. See y'all later.